Welcome all. Today's topic is Dynasties of Ancient Karnataka. First, let us study about Kadambas. Uh, as the Shatavahanas declined, the Pallavas of Kanchi ruled many parts of Karnataka, including Banavasi. The Punnata king was ruling from Kirtipura, that is today's Kitturu of Ekkadadevana Kote Taluk, and Brihadbanas were ruling Kolar and Andhra and some parts of Karnataka. By the same time, the Pallavas put an end to the kingdom of Chutus. Thus, as there was no major power in Karnataka, it helped Pallavas to have the major portion of Karnataka included in their kingdom. Thus, Kanchi became the center of activities in South India. The 4th century AD saw the rise of Kadambas in Banavasi in North Kannada district. Mayura Sharma was the first great leader to raise the banner of Kadambas. Banavasi was their capital, hence were called the Kadambas of Banavasi. With the reign of 200 years, they played an important role in the development of Karnataka culture. They had an emblem of lion and the flag with the picture of Vanaras. The literary source of Kadamba history are very scarce. However, some inscriptions are available. Among these, the Talagunda inscription found in Shivamoga district, Halmidi inscription in Hassan district, Halasi inscription in Belgaum district are important. Beside these, monuments like temples, forts, palaces and other buildings have been helpful. Let's know about the origin of Kadambas. There is no clear evidence about the origin of Kadambas. Based on the available inscriptions, nothing definite could be said about them. Thus, there are many legends about their origin. The Talagunda pillar inscription. Kakutsa Varma's Talagunda inscription is important among some of the inscription that tells about the Kadamba lineage. This inscription, which stands in front of Pranaveshwara temple, which is in ruins, is of bronze squads. The inscription, which is totally in Sanskrit, should be read from bottom to top. The first couple of lines have praised Kukutsa Varma. Next, we get the details about Mayura Sharma. Accordingly, a Brahmin Harati Putra's family belonging to Manavya Grotra was living in the west coast. A Kadamba tree growing near their house gave the name Kadamba to the family. Mayura Sharma went to the Pallava capital Kanchipuram for education, where he was insulted by the wicked gods of proud Pallavas. This incident made this Brahmin Mayura Sharma to become a Kshatriya Mayura Varma. He took to the hills, built an army, and as revenge of this insult defeated Pallavas and established an independent Kadamba kingdom. This is the gist of the inscription. The Prakrit inscription of Malavalli also supports the claim that the Kadambas were Brahmins. This inscription had referred to the first Kadamba king as Dvijottama. All the other descendants of him have called themselves Varmas. There cannot be any doubt in that the Brahmin Sharma were converted to warrior caste Varmas by Mayura. Whatever may be the caste or origin of Kadambas, they were originally Kannadigas of Karnataka. This has been supported by their inscription which are in Kannada and Sanskrit. First, let's study about the Mayura Varma. According to the Talgunda inscription, Mayura Sharma was the founder. Mayura Sharma went to the University at Kanchi for education with his teacher Veera Sharma. Kanchi in those days was famous throughout South India as the center of Vedic education. The Pallava king Shivaskanda Varma was at that time preparing for horse sacrifice, that is Ashwamedha Yaga. When Mayura Sharma was engaged in his daily ablutions on the bank of river, the Pallava horse riders trampled his clothes. The attitude of Pallava guard who were negligent towards a mere Brahmin induced Mayura Sharma go out of Kanchi with a challenge to teach Pallava a lesson. He gave up Brahminism and took up the profession of Kshatriya. The hand that held the sacred grass took up the sword. Mayura Sharma became Mayura Varma. Mayura Varma went to Sri Shaila or Sri Parvata. He raised an army of the forest dwelling people of the thick jungle of Sri Parvata near Chandravalli. He trained them in guerrilla warfare. The mountain became their happy hunting ground. First, he attacked the border force of Pallavas. Within a short time, he defeated the Banas. As a result, many principalities of Banas came under his control. Pallavas, who paid no attention to him in first beginning, now were alarmed. They sent an army against him, but they were thoroughly beaten by the mountain and jungle warfare tactics of Mayura. The defeat of their army made Pallavas extend their hand of friendship to him. As a result, the areas were from west coast of to Prahara, that is Malaprabha river, was ceded to him and he was declared independent king. Mayura Varma, who ruled from 345 to 360 AD, built a tank near Chandravalli in Chitradurga district, where he also issued an edict on a huge rock. He repaired and strengthened the tanks, beautified the surroundings, and the kingdom was extended. Mayura Varma performed the Ashwamedha Yaga and extended the territories to Kanchi in the south, to Malwa and Gaya in the north. Now let's learn about Kangavarma. After Mayuravarma's death, his son Kangavarma came to the throne. During his time, the Vakataka king of central India invaded Kuntala and he was defeated. This enhanced the fame of Kangavarma. Thus, though he was not as mighty as that of Mayura Varma, he protected his kingdom and had a good wish and loyalties of his subject. He had acquired the title Dharma Maharajadi Raja. His son Bhagirath succeeded him. Raghupati Varma succeeded his father Bhagirathi Varma. He was a contemporary of the Gupta emperor Chandragupta II, who had sent his court poet Kalidasa to Raghupati Varma's court as an emissary. Next, Kukutsa Varma. After Raghupati Varma, his brother Kukutsa Varma ascended the throne. He, with the exception of Mayura Varma, was the best among all the Kadambas. His Talagunda inscription tells us that he was valorous and also a poet. He had matrimonial relationship with Guptas, Gangas and the Alapas of the west coast. Kumaragupta of the Guptas and Madhava II of the Gangas were his son-in-laws. While on the hunting trip in Sahyadris, he issued the inscription at Talagunda near Shivamogga. Kannada as an administrative language. Kukutsa Varma made Kannada as an administrative language for the first time in 425 AD. The inscription tells us that he was a devotee of Pranaveshwara and built a tank in the name of Pranaveshwara. As he became old, Kukutsa Varma abdicated the throne in favor of his eldest son Shanti Varma and retired to Vanaprastha. He had two younger sons, Kumara Varma and Krishna Varma. Krishna Varma was ruling Uchingi and started supporting Pallavas against Mrugesha. He was the son of Shanti Varma. By the premature death of his son Shanti Varma, Kukutsa Varma had to come out of retirement and took over the administration to his hands. At this state, Kadambas had two branches, one at Uchingi and other at Banavasi. They were under the rule of Krishna and Mrugesha respectively. Mrugesha Varma from 477 to 490. Mrugesha Varma, son of Shanti Varma, had other names like Sri Vijaya, Sri Mrugesha, etc. Mrugesha has been praised in inscriptions for having protected his kingdoms, for gaining riches, and for being a terror to the Pallava menace. He had married the Kaikeya princess Prabhavati. He defeated the Ganga king Vishnugupta and pushed him out of Kolar. The Gangas must have then changed their capital to Talakadu. Mrugesha then waged a war against Pallava king Skandavarma, who was overwhelmed and he ran from Kanchi. Mrugesha had another capital, Halasi. He built a Jain temple in his father's memory and endowed it with many grants. He was a good administrator, generous, just, and thought of welfare of his subject. After his death, his queen Prabhavati's son Ravi Varma came to the throne. Ravi Varma. At the time of his father's death, Ravi Varma was still a boy. So, Madhanta Varma, son of Kumara Varma, the king of Uchangi branch, looked after the kingdom. It seems ambitious. Madhanta Varma must have become the too powerful for Ravi Varma's comfort. But Mandatha Varma died without an issue after the rule of only a short period. This helped Ravi Varma to gain his right easily, and he extended the frontiers of his kingdom to the bank of river Narmada. However, he was not an experienced administrator. Vishnu Varma, a king of another Kadamba branch at Triparvata, tried to take advantage of this. He invaded Ravi Varma's kingdom with the help of Pallava king Chanda Danda Shanti Varma. In the battle, Vishnu Varma was killed. Ravi Varma then conquered the Ganga king Avanita also. Ravi Varma's valor has been praised in the Halasi inscription. He was the patron of saints and scholars. With his death, his wife committed sati. He was succeeded by Hari Varma. He issued an inscription in the eighth year of his reign. Krishnavarma II, the son of Simhavarma of Uchangi, conquered Harivarma and occupied Banavasi. Thus ended the lineage of Shantivarma, who ruled the Kadamba kingdom with Banavasi as their capital. But this reign did not last long. In the meanwhile, the Chalukyas, who had become powerful, conquered the Kadambas. Vishnuvarma II, Abhayavarma, Bhogivarma, and others who followed under the subordinate of Chalukyas. The 10th century Kadamba branches were ruling at Goa, Hangal, and Chandavara. They were respectively called Kadambas of Goa, Hangal, and Chandavara. They were actually principalities under Chalukyas of Kalyani, and they continued in the same status in Karnataka up to the 14th century. Let's study about the administration. In about 200 years of rule, Kadambas have contributed much to the Indian culture. They were the followers of Vedic religion. The administration was based on Hindu Dharma Shastra. The kings devoted much of their time towards the welfare of the subject. The nobles and priests held influential position in the court. The cabinet was constituted with the chief minister, commander of force, and chief priest. A 5-membered council of ministers called Manavergada, Tantrapala, Pradhana, Kramuktapala, Sabhakarya Sachiva was established. The chief minister and his council used to advise the king on administrative matters. In the inscription of Mandhatha, we come to know that the officials were called Rahasyadikritas, who were private secretaries of the king. The army of Kadambas had a Chaturanga Bala. The Kadamba kingdom extended from Goa in the west and Srishaila in the east, Hasana and Bangalore in the south. It consisted of 18 kingdoms called Kampanas or Ashta Dasharajya. Banavasi was the capital city. It was also called Vaijayantipura. Halasi, Uchangi, Honagal, Kudalur were the regional capital cities. These kingdoms included Narida Olenadu. Later it was called Devalingenadu. Districts were called Vishyas. Among the Vishyas, Mangaluru, Talakadu, Narsipura, Sandraka Vishyas, Banavasi Vishyas, Uttara Kannada, Sirasi, Tagare Vishyas, etc. King was assisted by the cabinet of minister. A prime minister was called Desha Amatya. Neelakanta was served as Desha Amatya under Ravi Varma. He was also proficient in medicine. Some of the famous commanders of the period were Shrutakirti, Kirti Varma, Simhanandi, Jeenananda, and others. Palace officers were called Pratiharis. Jayakirti was famous Pratihari in the days of Ravi Varma. Towns were administered by Pattanashetty. Villages were administered by Gramabhojakas or Gaudas. Let's know about the social condition. Most people lived in villages. Joint family was prevailed. The property descended from father to son. However, daughters may become heirs when there was no male issues. People were interested in varieties of ornaments and clothes. There was no scope for intercaste marriage. Marriage was limited to his own gotras. The Varnashrama and Sati were practiced. As an instance, the Sati performed by Ravi Varma's widow. Kadamba inscription praised the Brahmin domination over the Hindu society. The kings were promoters of happiness of people and Brahmins. Brigesha Varma was called the devotee of gods, Brahmins, and Raja Purohits. Let's know about the economic condition. Economic prosperity was attained by agriculturists, rich traders, and craftsmen. Weaving, preparing of ornaments, topaz, coal, zinc, lead, wine, and oil extraction were other important professions. Gold and silver coins were in circulation. Topaz, ruby, emerald, and other gems were issued. Land was measured by the unit called Navaratna. The word Shanyavaratna was used in edict. It refers to an unit of measurement. Roman coins were discovered in the ruins of the Kadamba trading centers limit. It proves their trade contact with Rome. According to sorry, according to Hayavadana Rao, the Kadambas were the first to mint Padma Tankas. Each Padma Tankas weighed 15 gram. They had the impression of Shanka or Nandi or lion on the side of Padma on one side and the Padma and lotus on the other side. Along with these symbols, two dots were marked on the sides of animal. Very few Kadamba coins have been discovered. Let's know about the cultural contributions of Kadamba. Literature and education. Temples and mats were the chief educational center. There was scope for upper class people to get education. Kadambas encouraged Kannada and Sanskrit. They had a chance to get the education they liked free of cost. Prakrit was the administrative language and Sanskrit Kannada gradually occupied the position. Apart from the inscription of Chandravalli and Malavalli, the rest are in either Kannada or Sanskrit. The temples, mats, and Brahmapuris, Ghatikas, and Agrahars were the chief centers of learning. Upper caste of society had opportunities to receive education. Kannada and Sanskrit were patronized during the time of Kadambas, and literature developed during their time. In the beginning, Prakrit was most properly used. Kannada and Sanskrit were introduced into the official spheres later on. With the exception of edicts at Malavalli, the other edicts are in Sanskrit. Mayura Varma's edict in Chandravalli is in Sanskrit. Kannada was also on its way to replace Prakrit. The Halmidi edict is in Kannada. It throws the light on the fact that Kadambas were using Kannada as official language. Literary sources available in the edicts may be regarded as the beginning of Kannada literature. Mention may be made of edicts found in Halmidi, Tamatakallu, Sirigunda, Koppala, Tagare, Siriguppa, Kalagundi, Kampili, etc. Halmidi inscription consists of 16 lines of 58% of Kannada words and 42% of Sanskrit words. Similarly, in other inscription also more and more Kannada words are used. Linguistically, these words are called Hale Kannada words. Let's know about the religion. Kadambas were the followers of the Vedic religion. Thus, Hinduism was a popular religion. Jainism and Buddhism were also encouraged. In places like Puligere and Anagal, endowments and grants were given to the Jain temples and scholars. The land grants inscription of Kadamba testifies to this fact. Jain ascetic like Pujyapada, Niravadya, Pandit, and others have been mentioned in the inscription. Kamalamukas, Kapalikas, Shaivas, and Vaishnavas had the royal patronage. Festivals like Chaitra and Deepavali were celebrated in temples. The expenses of these festivals were borne by people of all religions. Buddhism also found encouragement like other religions. The Chinese traveler Huan who visited Banavasi in 7th century AD, has mentioned about Buddhist viharas at Banavasi. Let's know about the sculpture and architecture. The Kadamba kings were patrons of music, painting, and architecture. Their temples and statues have been the evidence of the artistic excellence of those days. The 5th century AD Jain Basadi at Alasi, built by Mrigesha Varma, is one of the oldest buildings of Karnataka. The figure of Jinamurti, Jina Yakshi, and Padmavati have been quite artistically done. The Shiva temple of Talagunda reflects the Kadamba style of architecture. The others were Kalleshwara temple of Alsi, Jaina Basadis, um, Madhukeshwara temple of Banavasi, Varaha Narasimha, and others belong to the Kadamba period. There is a magnificent five-headed serpent in Madhukeshwara temple. There is a richly carved Shivalingas in Uchangi and Chandravalli. The gigantic Bhairava statue at Goa, which is of the same period, is very beautiful and artistic. The Shikara or Vimana, which was elevated in the pyramidal style, was the Kadamba's innovation. Gudnapura Jain Basadi belong to the Kadamba period. The figures of Manmata, Padmavati are really beautiful. The ruins in the palace and dance hall has depict rich carvings, and from Kamala Narayana temple to Devgaon in Goa state is richly carved on the square base. The pillars of the hall, the sanctum, santorium, and entrance hall are beautifully carved. There are several caves in Goa region of Aldravelam, Nyota, Lampa, Goa, which are remarkably carved. Some have Shivalinga carved out of soapstones. There are some inscription of these Shivalingas. Let's know about the painting. In the cellular cave excavated near Chandravalli at Ankali Mata, a Buddhist temple is found, which is said to have belonged to the Kadamba period. They must have been painted by the Buddhist monk in red and black, but the colors have faded now. We can see the idols of Nandi and the pictures of Dashavatara, conches and wheels, that is Shanka and Chakra, in the temple at Banavasi, Halasi, Chandavara, and Goa. That's all about Kadambas. In next class, let's study about the Gangas of Talakadu. Thank you. Subscribe to the channel.